Hey guys, Bitcoin has already hit a new all-time high, and the question is, what to do next? Should we invest more, sell, or how should we allocate our investments in our portfolios? 5%, 10%, or maybe 20%? Given the unprecedented amount of optimistic news, isn't it time to invest all your savings? Today we will discuss these questions, so be sure to watch this video till the end. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let's get started. After Bitcoin hits a new all-time high, the market is usually in an optimistic mood, and we see the price rise for some time afterwards. Every cycle is different, but Bitcoin tends to move up and down in a fairly similar fashion every 4 years. Even though each time is very similar to the last, we can't know for sure what will happen in the future, but we usually see real choppers before the halving and all-time highs after the halving. And although this happens every year, I personally feel that this time something new could happen, something that has never happened before. Now we can see that the price of Bitcoin is starting to rise a little earlier than usual. If you look at this chart, you can see where we are in terms of halving. And judging by this, we are either going through the motions or we are going to see a significant correction very soon, because there is a little over a month left before the halving. I also found a rather interesting illustration of all the cycles. Each zone is a year. Usually we don't see new historical highs for some time after a halving. But as I said, we didn't see old all-time highs before this event. So who knows, maybe there is no point in looking at the history of cryptocurrencies anymore? I think there are quite simple reasons and explanations for all this. We have the Bitcoin ETF, which certainly brings in unrealistic amounts of BTC. The cryptocurrency itself has become more developed. And there are a huge number of projects, startups, and coins. And most importantly, there are many more people willing to become part of this market. But let's take a closer look at what has caused such a big growth. Opening the chart, we immediately notice an interesting trend. Last week, we saw a sharp surge in the price after it broke out of the triangle formation, which was anticipated by the compression of the Bollinger Bands. Now, at the beginning of this week, we have seen the triangle formation and the Bollinger Bands expanding again. The price successfully broke out of this formation and reached a high while meeting resistance from sellers, hoping for a significant correction. An interesting situation, isn't it? After all, we have already reached old highs before the halving, but the main question is how long we are here. Will the buyers be able to outbid those expecting a correction? To understand whether investors will be able to overcome this hurdle, it is necessary to analyze the reasons for last week's surge. Here's what happened. Grayscale installed a giant advertising banner for its ETF right in the heart of New York City. At the same time, Merrill Lynch and Wells Fargo banks began offering their clients investments in a spot ETF on Bitcoin. It is important to note that Merrill Lynch is part of the largest U.S. bank, Bank of America, which is second only to Apple in the list of companies invested in by Warren Buffett. By the way, this is a very amusing situation. After all, Buffett is known not only for his unmatched career as a profitable investor, but also for his position on Bitcoin. If you told me you owned all the Bitcoin in the world and offered it to me for $25, I wouldn't take it, Buffett said. Whether it goes up or down in the next year or 5 or 10 years, I don't know. But the one thing I'm pretty sure of is that it's not producing anything. And now it turns out that he is unwittingly investing in the first cryptocurrency. But this is not the most interesting news. In fact, almost every day now there is a bunch of interesting stuff related to Bitcoin and investing in it by big players. It seems to me that Michael Saylor has a significant impact on the entire market. He is actually one of the biggest Bitcoin maxes, or at least he tries to be. In a recent interview, he made it clear that he has no plans to sell his BTC and is only gaining ground.
Would you sell? When would it make sense to take profits there?
Well, I've famously said I'm going to be buying the top forever. Bitcoin is the exit strategy. It is the strongest asset. So what we see right now is the Bitcoin has just emerged as a $1 trillion asset class.
I don't even need to explain how much of an impact this has on the public, because such a well-known investor says that he doesn't plan to sell BTC, he just wants to accumulate them. Immediately, some hilarious memes started popping up about this. On the contrary, some people even began to doubt Michael's words, as he is the CEO of MicroStrategy, one of the largest BTC holders. However, Michael quickly dispelled these doubts. because right now they are planning to raise $600 million in investments that will be used to buy Bitcoin. This is quite an interesting decision because now the price is almost at its peak, and the average purchase price of BTC from the fund is $3,500, which is more than half the current price. But this fund is not the only one using such a strategy. Just look at this nightmarish figure. And this actually demonstrates the fact that BTC is a scarce product. Funds buy 2,000 coins almost every day, and only 900 BTC are mined per day. And it is very interesting to see what will happen after the halving, because mining will become more expensive and more difficult, so maybe the daily number of mined BTC will be even lower. And the last thing I want to mention is Michael Saylor. He recently made a rather interesting point about ETFs, and looking ahead, we can already conclude that he was right.
If we're talking about the future of Bitcoin, I think that we're in the Bitcoin gold rush era. And it started in January of 2024, and it will run till about November of 2034.
And it is true. It is simply impossible to ignore the greatness of spot Bitcoin ETFs, which have only recently appeared, but are already bringing an unrealistic amount of liquidity to the market. Recently, a record volume of $6 billion was seen. At the same time, BlackRock's ETFs were up to $3.3 billion. I think you all know that this is another huge fund that can actually rig the game. That's one of the reasons for Bitcoin's growth, but it's not the only reason. These factors have caused private and institutional investors to fear not buying the first cryptocurrency and its possible absence from the market. This phenomenon is called a supply shock, when the price suddenly skyrockets due to a shortage of goods. By the way, on 20th of February, Bitcoin stocks on the leading U.S. crypto exchange Coinbase fell to their lowest level since 2015, and this is not surprising as Coinbase has become the #1 supplier of BTC2 ETFs. So, now that we've figured out the reasons for such a sharp rise, I'd like to move on to the question of what to do. But before that, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on even more quality cryptocurrency content. Now there is a good chance that we will see even better performance for BTC in the near future. After all, the scarcity of the asset is already becoming a rather pressing issue. And if we don't see new records from the funds this week, the Fed may surprise us in a week's time. The U.S. government is preparing a series of surprises for investors and the banking sector. Although they managed to postpone the shutdown, Congress allowed one part of the government to work until March 8th and the other until March 22nd. An agreement is expected, but the political battle is escalating. This could come as a shock to the markets, especially as the temporary funding program for regional banks expires on March 11th, and such an event could launch the first cryptocurrency into space. After all, it is as simple as that. The less trust in banks and the government, the more liquidity cryptocurrencies get. This was already the case when American banks began to fall in 2023. However, some analysts also expect a significant correction. For example, according to CryptoQuant's indicators, a correction of 30% is expected. This is also the opinion of other reputable experts. As for my opinion, I still believe that we should wait for a 20–35% correction, after which we will fly to 75,000 and continue to look for support points. It should be clarified that I'm not talking about a 7-day period. This is my forecast before the halving. Warnings of corrections seem logical, but the market often ignores such expectations. If BlackRock and other funds continue to pump up the hype and the supply shock gains strength, a normal pullback in Bitcoin may not come for a long time. I want to make it clear that this is in no way financial advice, just my thoughts and analysis of the situation. So always do your own research and invest wisely. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date, and don't forget to support this video with your like if you believe in Bitcoin's imminent flight to the moon this year. Thanks for watching your Coin Post.